So the more predictable things can be, the better the predictions are, right? Like there's just more information. They know what to do next. And so kind of setting up this transition, doing things that are relaxing for you, but, really investing that time because, oftentimes our lives are really busy, but, sleep kind of pays a lot of dividends during the day if we kind of ensure that we protect it.
Hi, I'm Zoe.
Hi, I'm Erica.
Hey, Erica. This is our podcast.
Well, what do we do on the podcast?
We talk to wellness experts.
Well, what do we talk about?
Wellness stuff.
And why are we doing this?
Because we want to have an inclusive conversation about things that you can actually use and apply to your life.
Right. We don't think that wellness should feel preachy. We think it should feel like everybody can participate.
That's right. So if you like what you hear, tell a friend. Give us 5 stars. They're all free.
All of the above.
All of the above.
And think of us as your navigators on the bumpy highway to well.
All right. Well, how did you sleep last night in preparation for this conversation around sleeping?
You know what? I didn't wake up, so that was positive. But I just didn't get enough. I can never get enough sleep. It's just like never. And, I feel like I don't know if catching up is there's such a thing, but I also just my sleep has been interrupted that pretty much like half the week this week by
this week. I was say like this year.
Well, yeah, but like Monday, Tuesday, my small child was just like creeping in. He's all freaked out by, I don't know. He's like, my rug looks crazy. It's like their imaginations are just so nuts. I'm just like, what do you mean? It's like, it looks like an eyeball staring at me. I'm like, it's a rug.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, I give up. Just come in my bed.
I remember literally when I was his age and I had a bunk bed and it was a wood bunk bed. And on the top bunk, from where I was lying on the bottom, there had been a sticker above my head and I tore the sticker off at one point and the mark that it left looked like, like devil horns. And I remember staring at that thing for hours at a time on end and freaking myself out and getting myself totally worked up into this state of it's a devil, it's a demon, it's looking at me. And it was all just an excuse that I could go get in bed with my mom. I know that trick. Anyway, we talked to, do you want to say his name?
I will. I've been practicing. Dr. Aric, spelled A-R-I-C, Prather, spelled...
No, incorrect.
Yes, it is correct because we said Prather and he said, no, it's actually Prather. And I said, well, it's spelled with an A.
He said Prather. He said Prather.
No, that's what you said.
No, I said Prather.
Prather. And he said Prather. Oh, shit. Oh my God.
Anyway, now no one will ever forget his name.
Like, what? He's like, you're so special. What is wrong with you? Anyway, Dr. Aric
Prather.
Thank you. Yes, is a psychologist who specializes in insomnia. And he wrote The Sleep Prescription, 7 Days to Unlocking Your Best Rest. And it's all about strategies that have helped hundreds of sleep-deprived patients get their lives back by getting their sleep back on track. And he's got this full 7-day plan. It's basically going to take you a week to straighten your sleep out. He has a lot of good tips. And we've done a few episodes. We've had a few sleep doctors on.
Yes.
And there's a lot of overlap in information, but everybody has sort of their own special, something new every time.
I know. And I will try it all. And
yeah.
Sometimes it works and then it stops working.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I can drink a lot of wine before bed and it doesn't bother me. And then sometimes it really does. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it had to do with my cycle. There's just so many variables. Sometimes it's hard to ever pinpoint, just completely 100% blame it on one thing, except my children.
Yeah. But I guess the good news is that because there are so many different opinions and pieces of advice, people can sort of just pick and choose and make their own little, salad, their little sleep salad.
Make your little sleep salad with all this information. Do with it what you like. And I will say it is increasingly refreshing that this is what we were talking close out our conversation on this point, which I think is a good one, worth repeating. It's just that there's no badge of honor in like not getting sleep. Like,
Correct.
it's this funny culture that I think we used to have. We don't really have it as much anymore. The sort of like hustle culture is sort of dying a slow death, thankfully. But having that pride, like the people say it with like such pride, like, oh, I only need like 5 hours of sleep.
4
I
hours.
only need 5 hours of sleep.
Go fuck yourself. That's not
Bullshit.
true.
That's what we have to say to all of you people who want to brag about your bullshit sleep. No, 8, 9 tops.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Anyway, so enjoy our chat with Dr. Aric.
Prather.
And,
I just see a W in everywhere.
You just like beep, give me the bleep. Yeah, have a listen. Let us know what you think.
Sleep on it.
Sleep on it. Okay. Hey, co-founders of Earth and Star here. Real quick. What if we told you that your morning cup of coffee could deliver powerful immune support, keep dementia at bay, and help you sleep like a baby?
Or that you could improve your gut health and reduce inflammation with a delicious daily gummy?
You'd probably say we're full of shiitake.
Well, it can. And as it turns out, all of these powerful health benefits are hiding right under our feet, literally, in the form of functional mushrooms, sometimes referred to as adaptogens.
Adaptogens. They are fancy plants and fungi chock full of science-backed benefits to help your body restore, defend, and perform every single day. Earth and Star is our line of super premium adaptogen-infused goodies.
Goodies. What do we got? We've got organic ground coffee in dark roast, hazelnut, even decaf for people like me. And they're all boosted with a powerful dose of adaptogen extracts to give you the most delicious morning brew with zero crash, zero jitters, zero for real.
Talk to me. I like it. But is it actual coffee? Or that weird muddy tasting coffee replacement that you have to like mix and froth and then convince yourself it tastes good.
Tastes good and not like mud, you mean? No, because it's actual coffee. We just added in the extracts. So you get extracts for powerful focus, sustained energy, no anxiety, no big whoop.
And if that's not your thing, we've also got dark chocolate bars. I mean, come on, they're organic, 72% cacao with delicious flavors like mint, orange, sea salt, and all with no weird crap or additives. Most likely you have a daily chocolate habit anyway, so why not make it super delicious and functional while you're at it?
And what's that? You still need an easier way to make this adaptogen habit stick?
I see what you did there. I see where you're going.
Done. I know. Here's what I did. We've got gummies too. Get it? They stick. Nice. And we managed to pack a therapeutic dose into just 2 little vegan gummies.
Two, not 4 or 6, because come on, people, no grown ass adult needs 6 gummies a day. But if you do, no judgments.
No judgments. And no, Earth and Star products do not taste like mushrooms. We will legit give you your money back if you taste even the slightest hint of shroominess. Our products are just like the ones you are already consuming regularly. Real coffee, real chocolate, etc. They are just boosted with functionality to help you adapt every day.
Adapt every day with all the stuff that comes our way. Oh my God, I just did a rhyme.
That was good.
That's pretty good. So check us out at earthandstar.com or follow us at Earth and Star Co. And if you want 15% off, you can use the code HTW on your first order.
Welcome, Dr. Aric Prather. Aric is how you pronounce your name.
Aric, and it's Prather.
Oh, Prather. Oh, God. Aric Prather.
Oh, we screwed that one up. But just for the record, just so everybody knows the spelling, it's Aric. So Aric, got that part right?
Like Eric, like with an E, but just with an A.
And then Prather, but it's an A. It sounds like an E. It's like, I kind of think that you're messing with us right now.
Maybe I'll just say my name and you guys don't have to worry about it.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So Aric Prather.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Aric.
And you have written a book that we are very excited to talk about because it appears that you are hacking some sleep stuff, which anybody who has listened understands. This is my what I don't know if it's the holy grail or what is my white whale in life is to just sleep without having to do all the things. So we need to hear about the sleep prescription, which is what you have written.
Yeah. Happy to talk about it. And I mean, I think for all of us, right? Like it's like the secret sauce or like the glue that like holds our lives together, right? And like when it doesn't work right, it can cause a lot of distress, a lot of time, a lot of effort can be used to try to figure it out.
I spend, I would say, a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes on a given day just trying to figure out what like cocktail of supplements and what sleep rituals are going to work for me tonight. And then, the stress that is associated with that creates its own sleep issues. And I personally have been on, I would say like a 5 days decent sleep, 2 days very, very bad sleep for the last like couple of months, which is actually progress for me.
Yeah. Let's dig into it. Let's
dig in. So I'm curious why, and I think this is always so funny about books because it has to be like sort of attainable. We always assign like a number to it. And this is right. Yeah. How to unlock your best rest in 7 days, not 8.
Not
That's
8.
It.
Just
so
7.
How are we going to do it in 7 days?
Like 1 week. So this book is a part of a series, right? So they did one on love and there's one on stress coming out, and it all has kind of the same kind of setup around 7 days. But it's really like in the end of the book, I talk about how like this isn't the end, it's the beginning, because I kind of think of the things that are laid out, and they're kind of laid out one by one, and it's all distilled from what is kind of, recognized as the first line treatment for insomnia, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is what we do here in San Francisco in a clinic that I help run at UCSF. But it's really, I like to think of it really as like a recipe versus a menu, right? It's like a list of things, but really as you layer them on, it kind of creates what is important for getting your sleep back on track, but also like something that you're making, it often needs time to bake. Right. And so it's like the accumulation of doing these things as habits that are based in sleep science and leverages our sleep biology that's in there. Like we're kind of built to sleep. Over time, it will lead to improvements in people's kind of predictability around their sleep, which is often what is at the kind of the foundation of when people have really significant sleep problems is how unpredictable it's become, right? It's like we're constantly chasing sleep, and that's not how it works. I always say that no one really even wonders how sleep works until it stops. But then when it stops, it's like, oh my gosh, like how do I make this happen again? How do I get this, how do I get this back? And it turns out that like sleep isn't something that we make happen. It's something that happens to us, right? It kind of washes over us. And when people have insomnia, they often make changes or choices, not that, they're to blame for it, because all the choices that people make are really reasonable in the moment, but actually end up undermining how sleep works naturally.
So working from that, what are some of the ways that we undermine our sleep?
Yeah. I mean, and again, this is, it's geared towards people that have insomnia, right? Because everybody has I think the first thing is look, sleep is variable, right? Like everybody has ups and downs. And when we can't remove all the stress out of our lives, the expectation that we're going to have the best night of sleep every night is just not reasonable, particularly because we know that sleep changes as we age. And there's lots of biological things that happen that can, also happen as we age. And that contributes to kind of changes in kind of norms around sleep and expectations that we should have around what our sleep should look like. But, when people get into a routine that undermines their sleep, one of the things that happens is that people often spend a lot of time in bed not sleeping, right? Because sleep it's become so unpredictable that you really want to be in the right place at the right time. And so people spend a lot of time maybe they'll go to bed a little bit early because they're like, God, it really took me a hard time to get to sleep. Or I'm only getting 6 hours of sleep. I want to make sure I get it, but I don't know when it's going to be in that time.
Oh,
and so
I'm already panicking, by the way. I'm already
very
panicking.
anxious.
This is the weird thing. I feel like I start panicking about not being able to sleep somewhere in late afternoon. But sorry, go on.
Right. So, I mean, right. So like, this is, I mean, right. So that's what happens is, people then begin to kind of lose what we call like self-efficacy around sleep. Right. And so people will spend a lot of time in bed, not sleeping. So that window that they create for themselves, which again is understandable in the moment because sleep, it feels so unpredictable. It's a window that's much bigger than you could possibly ever fill up with sleep. So people with, some versions of insomnia will spend something like 12 hours in bed, right? They'll go to bed early. They'll kind of sleep in later because they had a bad night of sleep and they can't fill up that space with sleep. And as a consequence, you're guaranteeing hours of time where you're not sleeping because, the body can only make so much, right? But because it feels so unpredictable, that's what people will do. Yeah.
Can you define, so like, I'm just trying to understand like what the true definition of insomnia is.
That was my question too.
Oh,
yeah.
See how in sync we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly, people have experienced insomnia symptoms, right? That's like difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up too early. But kind of the clinical diagnosis of insomnia disorder is kind of having those symptoms, one of those symptoms, and dissatisfaction with your sleep and daytime dysfunction, right? So kind of feeling tired or having kind of brain fog or, changes in mood, like increased irritability or anxiety. But it's also kind of there's a duration component. So it's, 3 times a week for the last 3 months. And then it's not due to other things. So, sometimes, people will get depressed and their sleep will get disrupted, right? And then it's really due to the depression, or when their depression gets worse, their insomnia gets worse. Or, there's lots of medical conditions where insomnia is really common. And so, those things can also be accounting for it. But, if it's not accounted for by like a substance or a disorder, another, medical comorbidity or psychiatric comorbidity, and it has this duration and you have the opportunity to sleep, but you just can't, that would meet the diagnostic criteria for insomnia disorder. Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to do sort of like an allergy elimination diet and remove all of the things before you can officially say like,
well, I mean,
for example, if I haven't slept in 3 days, maybe it's because I had wine too late. So I'd have to stop taking wine, stop drinking wine.
Wine.
I take a lot of wine.
Take it medically.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where for the past 3 months, right? It's like 3 days a week, 3 days or more every week for 3 months, right? Yeah. That builds, that weighs on people, right? That like kind of like, that's a wear and tear on your system. By the time you get to those 3 months, it's fairly clear that you have insomnia. And I will say, most of the people that come to our clinic, I mean, it's been like 10 years they've had insomnia. Yeah. And it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that, people will go, the first person they'll go to is like the primary care physician, which makes sense for almost anything that is an ailment. But, the treatment is often some kind of prescription sleep aid. Right. And that really masks the problem, right? As soon as you stop taking it, you'll have insomnia again. And if you stop taking it kind of cold turkey, you're going to have kind of the worst insomnia you've ever had. And so, that really doesn't address it, but right, like that's where people know to go. And so that's the challenge.
Well, so on that note then, because then I want to, we definitely want to get into, some of the tactics and approaches, but it's interesting that we're talking about that. You mentioned like that root cause thing, because that's certainly, in the world that we kind of, operate in, functional medicine is always about, addressing the root cause rather than masking the symptoms. So in this case, like what, eliminating all those other things that you just named, what is the actual root cause of this chronic insomnia? I mean, I understand, aging and some, to some degree, like gut health and all of these things, but like, what is that specific mechanism that is causing insomnia?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I mean, I think, first, like the way that we think about the development of insomnia is like this 3P model, right? So the first P is, some people have a predisposition to it. Like some people are just more anxious, there is some genetic component to insomnia. And then there's usually a precipitating factor, like a stressor or something that goes on in your life that disturbs your sleep. But it's really the final P, these kind of perpetuating factors that create a chronic insomnia, right? Even though the stressor is removed, all the things you've done and you continue to have this. And so, the things that are dysregulated in insomnia, the kind of the root cause from my perspective are kind of, things that affect what regulates our sleep, right? So a misalignment of things like our circadian rhythm, and then our homeostatic sleep drive, which is kind of this drive for sleeping. We undermine how that works with our behaviors, and that kind of creates distress because now you're not sleeping well, and that distress kind of perpetuates the feelings, the things that get in the way of insomnia. And I mean, I think a good example is like oftentimes I'll have people who are, say, taking Ambien or some other medication, and they'll say, it just didn't work last night. Like I was just, because you can overcome even those types of medications because it's not the absence of Ambien in your system that's keeping you from sleeping. It's kind of our brain, our inability to let go, like that hypervigilance that really gets in the way. And so, what cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia does, or CBTI is really kind of behaviorally try to, work with your sleep system to get it back on track. And what happens is people begin to build confidence in their ability to sleep. They're being kind of reacquainted with that feeling of sleepiness. For many, they haven't felt that in so long. They always say that they're tired, but they're never sleepy, right? And by doing that, by building up that confidence, it kind of allows people to let go, to like not think about sleep anymore, right? Like it just happens again.
Yeah.
And so, and I will say that like when you give someone their sleep back, like it has incredible spillover effects for the other aspects of their life, right? Like we're better partners, we're better parents, we're more empathetic, we're more able to deal with stress, we make better dietary choices, right? We're more likely to do that, like that exercise in the morning. All of those things are tied to our ability to sleep and are disturbed when we don't get what we need.
Yeah, it really does. And that's why it feels so circular, where it's like, of course you're going to feel anxious and depressed and, moody and whatever. And all those things won't allow you to sleep. But if you don't get to sleep, you're going to feel all those things. I mean, it just is like, this endless cycle. But speaking of worrying and having anxiety about that, so you say worrying, I'm curious what you mean by this, the power of worrying early, and how to silence the anxious mind. What does worrying early mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're always looking for strategies to kind of take the worrying out of the middle of the night, or like right when you go to bed, right? That like, it turns out as humans, in the dead of the night is when our brain kind of fills that space, and it's never with like the most positive things in your life, right? Like it's always
Why
like,
is that?
why do we
save the worst for last?
Well, I mean, it's almost like a lot of people ask me that. I think it's probably pretty adaptive in the short term to like be thinking about the future and like what you need to solve and how you might be able to, but it never doesn't feel good, right? I mean, like in the same way that stress is necessary for life, like you need things to push you to be motivated, right? So it's like, but it's kind of on a curve, where too much is bad for you, and too little is probably bad for you. And so, and so the worrying piece, we're trying to figure out strategies to kind of move that out of the nighttime experience, because we're just not at our best, right? At that time, like we can't be solving things. We can't be. And so worrying early, actually like being intentional about scheduling it, where you say you take 15 minutes out of your day, all you do is kind of find a place where you can just worry about things, right? Maybe you write it down, maybe but I think the important part is like, it's a habit. Like, it's like you use that 15 minutes. You're like, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. No, you use the 15 minutes. Like it's that time. And you just sit there and do that and then, when it gets if you do this over time, in the evening at night, when you wake up, you can tell yourself kind of this self-talk model of like, look, I did this already. And
I covered this today.
I covered this today. And more importantly, I have it scheduled for tomorrow too. Right. And so it's like, look, like this is not the right time to be doing this. And it's just been shown to be effective in helping people let go a little bit. Right. I mean, obviously, when things are on your mind, they're on your mind, and there are other things that we can do in the moment. But that one seems to be helpful in kind of trying to compartmentalize some of these things, right? In a more appropriate time space. when you're kind of more, your brain is working better.
Yeah. I mean,
For sure.
that we could actually control the time of day that we worry, but I guess trying to put some guardrails in place around it in the first place might be a good step in the right direction. Like, excuse me, Zoe, I have to go worry now. So, can you just like finish this conversation?
Like, Erica, you have from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. to run around with your head on fire. Just go run in circles
and then I'm done.
And then you're done. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I instinctively do that. I kind of get like the most stressful, worrying kind of things out of the way, because I know, it's like there is a certain point at which my brain does just shut off in the evening.
Yeah.
And I'm so, there are definitely a lot of people who, I'm curious to hear what you think about this too. I think I know what you're going to say, but, those people who say, that they're most productive, most effective, most mentally sort of aware at night time, and they get their best work done. Like they're late at night. They're sort of not early birds. They're not very productive in the morning. My husband, but like it's, and I'm like, I have no idea how you do that. I'm literally like
opposite.
I'm night and day. And I kind of call bullshit on that all the time. I'm just like, I think you're procrastinating. I think you're doing all these other things. So, I mean, I'm just curious, is there a brain that is like, is that truly like a type of person? Your brain works better at night.
Yeah. I mean, one, it's so often that like couples are kind of paired up and they kind of differ in these sorts of ways. Like so often, like I have someone that has like severe insomnia and their partner like sleeps like a rock. And it's like every night they have to like stare at that and be like, why is this happening to me? But like, luckily, like we choose our partners based on other things other than their preferences for sleeping patterns and things like that. But I mean, that there's absolutely kind of a circadian differences. And so what you're talking about is kind of a delayed type person or a night owl, right? Mm-hmm. And, there is good evidence that kind of their ability to be alert is different than people that aren't night owls, and where they kind of do get this burst of energy and they tend to stay up later. They tend to want to sleep in later. And for many people, it's kind of like a lifelong thing. Now, there is some kind of gray area there, right? Because like procrastination, all those things can be used as ways of being like explaining why you're doing something. But usually it's the case where like if someone's on vacation and they're kind of left to their kind of free running kind of biology, they will tend to still stay up later than others who don't have that same kind of biological preference. And I mean, I certainly, like there are extreme cases, right? That where people, I see a lot of people that are like, they're like computer programmers and they work all night and then they want to sleep all day, and they have a job, say at like at Google or something like that, where everything's fine and they are very productive. And then all of a sudden they get a manager that wants to have like 9 a.m. meetings every week. And their life falls apart because they're now their circadian biology, their preference, their genetics are like misaligned with the world. And so, that can be really hard, right? Because it's not their fault. It's just like the world isn't set up for people that are like really late night people. And it's not, and so that is always a tough conversation. But, I guess in this way, based on the information that you told me, I would take the side of your husband, but I do understand that
I don't think
we're editing that out, by the way. That's
totally fair. Totally fair.
So can we dive in a little bit to what happens over the course of these 7 magical days where
sure.
it's going to save your life?
Well, what is the first? Yeah, I mean, like, what is the first piece of advice? What is the first piece of advice that you give someone?
I mean, I guess the first one is to buy the book. That's the first thing. But then, or find someone who has it. I'm just joking. So the probably the number one thing that I always tell people to do, and this is a hard one. I mean, and again, it's like I try to meet people where they are, like with what, but if people have, significant sleep problems, the first thing that you should do is set a standard wake up time, like that you keep 7 days a week. And it's because you want to kind of begin to entrain or kind of like sync your kind of internal rhythm. And just your circadian rhythm plays a really important role in kind of how we feel during the day, how alert we are during the day, and kind of the predictability of how your body works. And also I focus specifically on the morning because you can't put like a bedtime on someone that has kind of significant sleep problems. That's actually really distressing, right?
Yeah.
And so, but because we use the same kind of energy each day, you'll begin to get sleepy around the same time each night, right? But sleep is something that you don't control. Sleepiness isn't something we control, but we can control when we wake up. And so that would be the first thing to put in place. It kind of sets your circadian rhythm, and then it also sets kind of in motion your sleep drive, which I kind of use the example. It's kind of like a balloon that builds up with sleepiness throughout the day. So you like wake up, your balloon's flat. You go throughout the day, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then kind of when it gets to like an optimal amount, you begin to get sleepy. And then you go to sleep and it kind of like drains out that sleepiness. And so if you keep your wake time around the same each day, it just makes that more predictable too. Kind of the same amount of time has to go by typically to kind of get the sleepiness that you need to kind of make that transition.
So a question on that too is there are people who, also wake up insanely early, right? Like before the sun. So thinking about circadian rhythm, like, is that actually good? I mean,
So that's the other end of the continuum. So that's like what's called an advanced phase person, right? Where they kind of, and there's some evidence that as we get older, like maybe our grandparents, like you'll end up, they go to bed earlier, they get up really early. My grandparents lived in Palm Springs, and so they did that, but they also, because it was 120 degrees, they had to get up at that time anyway. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely a thing. It's not necessarily bad for you. Again, it's not well aligned with kind of the time, right? Like when people want to have dinner and you want to go to bed, for instance. But it's just kind of a variety of our circadian rhythms. I think one of the issues where it becomes challenging, and the same is true for someone that has a delayed circadian phase, is if they're able to get a sufficient amount of sleep in that time, right? So, someone that has an advanced sleep phase, if they have to do things in the evening or they want to, right, that can be hard because now they're kind of shortening their sleep opportunity window in the same way that someone wants to stay up late, but they have a job that starts really early. They are shortening that window. And so then they're kind of getting shorted on that amount of sleep that they need to function well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, so I'm feeling pretty good about not waking up before the sun.
Yeah.
Like those people who are like, I wake up at 5 and like I go to the gym, like they do all these things before the sun even comes up. And I'm just, I already wake up feeling like I'm super behind. But I'm not that person, so I don't care. Can you talk a little bit about the restriction technique, which I feel like you were starting to go there?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I think the other thing. So there are like two other main things that I want to make sure that we cover. So the one was the kind of waking up too early or waking up at the same time each day, right? And then so one of the things that we want to take advantage of with respect to someone's sleep biology is this balloon, right? This like homeostatic sleep drive that's building up. And oftentimes people who have insomnia, they don't feel sleepiness the same kind of way, right? They're just like, they're so nervous about it. They're so, and I mentioned like one of the behaviors that people do is like go to bed like prematurely early because sleep is so unpredictable. They're chasing it. They want to catch it. And so what we do, and this is in the book, but like what we do in clinic is we have people complete sleep diaries, right? So we ask everyone to become like their own sleep scientist. And so they kind of write down what time they go to bed, what time they, how long it takes them, how many times they wake up, how many minutes they're awake during the night, and then kind of what time they wake up in the morning. And that will give us kind of how much opportunity that they're giving themselves and how much sleep they're getting for that time. And once we have that information, we actually tend to shorten people's sleep opportunity to try to consolidate their sleep. And the way that we do that is by making their bedtime later, right? So we make their bedtime later. It actually increases the balloon, right? This balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we do it right, people are actually kind of like watching the clock, wanting to go to sleep. Something that they haven't experienced in so long is like this feeling of overwhelming sleepiness, just trying to kind of stay up. And so what we have I mentioned we don't have a kind of set bedtime for people, but we do set a no earlier than bedtime, right? So it's like if your bedtime, if we give you a schedule of like 12 a.m., it's like you need to stay up till 12 a.m. If it gets 12 a.m. and you're not sleepy, don't get in bed, right? Like we don't want you to get in bed not sleepy, but we don't want you to kind of give in early because we're really trying to kind of amp up this sleep drive. And if you do this over time, people will kind of feel sleepier during the day, right? Necessarily because they're getting probably less sleep than maybe they want, but they were already getting less sleep than they were wanted anyway because it was based on their sleep diary. And then it just becomes more consolidated, right? Like people kind of fall asleep really quickly. They tend to kind of sleep through the night in a continuous fashion. And it turns out that like a big bolus of sleep feels better. Like they're subjectively, like people feel better the next day, even if it's less than they need, than if it was even a little bit more sleep but broken up, right? That broken up sleep just doesn't feel as good. And so we do that, and it's in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, like the full treatment. It's like the hammer. Like it's like if someone can do this, like most cases their sleep will improve. And so once it's consolidated and we're tracking it again with a sleep diary, we begin to slowly move their bedtimes a little bit earlier, until we kind of hit a place where they're starting to have awakenings again. And we're like, okay, we hit the sweet spot. Like now this is where it is. And it's usually a bedtime that's later than they were doing before or what they thought it would be, but it produces kind of a better quality of sleep.
And that's over the course of how long? That's more than 7 days.
Yeah. So that's why it's the last thing in this book, like of the days, because you need to accumulate the data to actually set a time for yourself. And so usually, like I've seen it start working, within a week, but it's usually a couple weeks that you start to notice the difference. Like if you stick to it regularly, if you go to like a clinic to do this therapy, it typically is like, at least in ours, it's like an evaluation session and then maybe like 5 like follow-ups that are like a half hour long where we kind of like layer on kind of these strategies. So, depending on how soon you do it, it's like a month of kind of working on it. But again, like all of the work happens in between, right? Like it's a daily thing that you have to kind of work at, but it's really shifting your thinking around sleep kind of as something that you're not trying to, it's tried to set up all these parameters so that you don't have to think about it, right? Like it's like, because the effort is often the problem, right? The afternoon effort of like thinking about like what you need to be doing to get a good sleep is challenge, is hard.
Well, so then, I like that as like basically like reverse psychology. It's like, you cannot go to sleep until midnight. Okay. So don't worry about it. But what do you do then in like, what does that wind down period look like? And how soon should it start? Because I know that's, it's a big piece of the puzzle, right? It's like, at what point is a wind down routine like healthy and good? And at what point is it kind of like contributing to this like whole like fanfare and like anxiety around like getting ready for sleep to, the degree that it's causing anxiety and it's taking up too much brain space and you're sort of like anticipating constantly for too long? Like, what is that middle ground?
Yeah, it's a really great point. And certainly there's like whole industries created around this, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so
ceremonies that take hours. It's just like, oh, just go to bed.
Yeah. I think, my view is that, there really is, it's important to kind of demarcate like a transition, right? Where you kind of like close the chapter on the day and like, okay, now I'm going to wind down and it really, I focus on, the timing, I think we typically say like 2 hours, but like it's, if it's an hour, whatever, like it's whatever kind of transition works within your life, but it can't be immediate, right? Like we're not like laptops where I can just close this and my brain turns off. We need to kind of, because those rituals are really important, but they don't have to be kind of elaborate, right? What we're really trying to do is kind of cue your body that a transition is happening, right? And one that is kind of towards kind of relaxation, because your body needs that time to actually ready itself to kind of transition into sleep effectively. And so what do you do during that time? Well, first it's kind of making sure that time is carved out, right? That you're not like, doing email while you're trying to transition. And then it's like, I focus on kind of behaviors that are kind of low arousal and like slightly positive, right? Like things that you enjoy doing. But I also think that a lot of it is pretty personal, right? Like I say, like sleep is really universal, but it's also really personal. Like there are things about your life that only you know about and things that work for you. So like, some people read. I used to think reading was the thing. Like I was like, oh, you just need to read a couple pages. Like I just read a couple pages and I fall asleep, like no problem. And then I met all these people that are like voracious readers, right? And they're like, consuming books across the whole night. And I'm like, whoa, that's not for you. Like that's not like that's positive, but that's high arousal, right? Like that's engaging for the brain. And what we're trying to get away from is things that like, hit that reward center in your brain, right? So usually as a rule, I'm like, social media probably isn't the thing, right? Like things like TikTok are probably not the thing for you to do because those are designed to keep you engaged, right? Like that's why they exist, is like to keep you engaged and then to see the ads, right?
And then trigger anxiety about why your life is not as good as
right. And the upward social comparison is real, right? And like that doesn't activate those kind of positive feelings about yourself, right? Only negative ones usually. And so it's like whether it's like reading, listening to music, listening to the podcasts that you like but aren't like kind of crime serial versions where you have to like wait to the next one. Anything that you enjoy, but can demarcate this transition. And then it's like, all the other kind of bedtime things that you might do. And the ones that people do are not like, there's not always like a lot of science based in them, right? With the exception of like maybe a hot shower, which will help kind of, or, a warm bath that will help with your kind of core body temperature. But the other ones are often like, they become kind of tied to the experience of sleep. And so the ritual themselves can be helpful, right? They can just like help cue your body about what's going to happen next. Because really our brain is like just a predicting machine, right? That's its main role, is to like take in information, make predictions about like how to use resources so that we can stay alive. And so the more predictable things can be, kind of the better the predictions are, right? Like there's just more information. They know what to do next. And so kind of setting up this transition, doing things that are relaxing for you, but, really investing that time because, oftentimes our lives are really busy, but, sleep kind of pays a lot of dividends during the day if we kind of ensure that we protect it.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here making the list of all of the various efforts that I have made over the years in whether it's behavioral or supplements, and I want to get your take on supplements too. Yeah. But I would love to just get your like yay or nay on like all of these things that I have done, which include white noise machine, cold room, box breathing, blue light glasses, bright light in the morning, yoga nidra, meditation, valerian, magnesium, lavender, GABA, reishi, CBN, and that's it.
I mean, you're invested in your sleep. I like it.
Yeah, I still don't. I still haven't cracked it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think many of those things are, critical to having a good night's sleep. So, keeping your room dark, quiet, and cool is really important. Like you could do all these other behavioral things, but like if your lights are all on and noise is blaring, it's not going to make a difference. I think the different kind of meditation strategies can be really helpful for relaxing people. For some, some people kind of gravitate towards those, and those can be really helpful. What are the other ones? So the supplements that you mentioned. So the light in the morning, definitely important. So like if
sunlight, we're talking about sunlight, not just.
Well, so sunlight So sunlight, or if you have like a light box, or if you have
like a day like today, you're not going outside and getting bright light in your eyes. So I have my light box.
Yeah, I mean, like you're probably still getting like a sufficient amount of sunlight if you like stood near the window, but yeah, right. So like there are other ways, and right, like I used to live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and everyone had a light box. Yeah. Like it was just like all the time. Like it was just cloudy all the time. And so all those things with respect to supplements. I mean, certainly there is some evidence that they can be effective. Like particularly, I think like valerian has been shown like in kind of randomized placebo-controlled trials in some cases to be effective. And certainly magnesium has also been shown to be effective. effective for some people. And so, if that's helpful for an individual, that's fine. And also those are likely not to have any kind of big, negative side effects. Of course, consult your physician for any kind of contraindications for your health. But, there's also some level of placebo effect that are involved in those. And that's not like a bad thing. I guess I always bring up that like these things aren't inherently bad, at least as far as we know, but it's always a question of like, what happens if you don't have it? Right? Like, is it like, so the psychological dependency is real for these things. And so it's always something to kind of question. If it turns out that you don't have it and all of a sudden you don't sleep for the entire night because you didn't take your magnesium pill, that kind of calls into question like, hey, like maybe I need to get a hold of this because, my sleep, I'm really kind of relying on this thing. And maybe I'm putting a little bit too much effort into my sleep routine than I need to be. You know what I mean? And I think there are ways to, even when I most people who come to our clinic are already on some kind of medication or supplement. And when, and my goal is always to get them off of it, but like, I don't have any like value judgment on it in any way, but especially when it comes to supplements. But some people, they want to get off magnesium for whatever reason. And so like, we'll do like a slow tapering of that in the same way, just to kind of wean away at that psychological dependency, just like you would for any other kind of medication. And
it's just so funny because magnesium is just like, I take it every night. I take magnesium glycinate, and I definitely am like, I will feel like I will, whether it's placebo or not, I'll definitely feel like I'll wake up if I don't have it.
I mean, and it's not saying it doesn't do something.
No, I've never thought about it in terms of like having like a serious addiction. Like I have to like taper my magnesium habit. It's just kind of funny.
It's like psychological association. That's all. I mean, that's definitely what it is. Because I will tend to panic if I like go on a trip and I forget to bring some combination of my little magic, whatever they are. And it's mostly, I think it is mostly the psychological dependency, which not awesome either. What is your take? I feel like I know the answer, but I'm just curious because we like to ask everybody. But what's your take on melatonin? Like, how anti are you? Because there's a big spectrum.
Is that right?
She just assumed that you were anti.
I feel like most.
Well, no, I mean, so lots of people take melatonin. It like the efficacy data for it is not high. But it also, I don't think there's also a lot of evidence to suggest that if you chronically take it, it's going to like burn out your pineal gland or anything like that. We don't really know, but most people take it at much higher doses than they should. And it doesn't seem to be that effective for insomnia for most people, at least in kind of the trials. It is something that we use routinely when we try to shift someone's circadian rhythm, right? Like, so like your husband,
the
for
main
instance.
thing it's supposed to be for, right? Is literally just shifting that clock and nothing.
Yeah, else. For jet lag, or for someone that has a delayed sleep phase and they want to kind of work within kind of the bounds of the world. Right. It's but we do like at a really low dose. So it's like 0.5 milligrams and we do it much earlier. Right. So like 5 hours before someone wants to be asleep, because it's really just to kind of cue your brain to be like, oh, I should be making melatonin. And so that's its role. And, that paired with light exposure in the morning and kind of shifting it kind of on a schedule can be effective. But, and then I think, there is some data to suggest that it's, can be helpful for kids. That's like for sleep. And that's something that I'm not a pediatric sleep medicine person, but I don't really know why it seems to work better in that way, but
I'm like, I have two and they keep me up all effing night. Oh my gosh. My child. Yes. Talk about like the reading at night. My son has like the reading at night he's just, I'll go in at midnight and he'll still be there. Just like poring over Harry Potter, like reading, like oh, this has to stop. But maybe the answer is melatonin.
To be clear, I am not promoting it. I'm just saying that.
No, I think we all heard it right here, Dr. Prather. He told me to do it.
No, edit that out.
I'm kidding. I accidentally, Erica, do you remember when I accidentally took?
I did. I remember. I tell you to tell that.
I never take melatonin. I know we have to wind it down, but I accidentally took 21 milligrams of melatonin.
Thinking it was 2, right? You thought it was like 2.1?
Thinking it was something. Yeah. I don't know if I had jet lag or something. I was like home, but I just was like done. Slept all day. I mean, it felt like I was carrying 1,000 pounds. I mean, my body could just not go on. There was
You sent me
no
some
way.
text message in the middle of your haze. You were like, I just took too much melatonin. And then like powered down, didn't hear from you for like 6 hours.
If anyone has any question as to whether or not, I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot of to back it up, but my God, that backed it up for me. I was like, I was out, done.
Yeah. A lot of people, like, at least in my experience, they often kind of have a hangover effect from it too.
Oh, for sure.
And,
so
for sure. That's why I don't even go anywhere near like the actual hardcore prescription stuff. But one last question that has more to do with behavioral stuff. And then I know we got to wind it up, but are you familiar with, or what is your take on this concept about sleep segmenting? Do you know, I mean, I'm sure you know, but.
I mean, kind of like that, the historical tendency for people to kind of sleep in bouts.
What I've heard about it is that if you are somebody who it's just how you're wired, that you go to bed maybe at 11, but you're consistently up from like 2 to 4, for example, then maybe you go and embrace that 2 to 4 and like get up and actually do something productive with it, since you definitely know you're not sleeping. And I have a couple of friends that actually have just recently admitted that this is what they do. Like, she'll finish all of her, nonfiction reading between 2 and 4 because she knows she's not sleeping anyway. So it's the idea of just like accepting that your sleep is broken up and, leaning into it rather than trying to fight it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a couple thoughts about it. So, I mean, in that instance, that sounds really healthy, right? Like that kind of behavior, I mean, versus kind of stewing away in bed and kind of worrying about the fact that you're not sleeping. So that was the other thing I want to talk about is like when people aren't able to sleep, like definitely it's bad to kind of lay in bed and worry about it, right? Like that creates a kind of a conditioned arousal where it begins to kind of become predictable that you like wake up and you have this hard time sleeping, and this worry happens. But I mean, I think that scenario can work if someone is able to get this amount of sleep that they need, right? Mm-hmm. So like this idea, like, there was this idea like before electricity, people would go to bed earlier and then they'd wake up and then they would be up for a couple hours and they go to sleep again. And that makes sense because we sleep in cycles. Also, the time that the sun's down to when it comes up is longer than we can sleep, right? So it's like we wouldn't, you would have to wake up. Like there was no other way. And so, it worked out in that strategy. Like for your friend, I mean, if they go to bed at 11 and they wake up and they're awake from 2 to 4, and then they are able to sleep in a little bit later and they feel go like 4
to 7 or whatever.
It's not inherently bad. No, I mean, I think that's really at the crux of it is that, people worry so much about what they should be doing, for sleep. And that can kind of feed insomnia. And so when people kind of wake up at 2, they give themselves 20 minutes or so to get back to sleep. It doesn't happen. You want to kind of get out of bed, do something quiet, or, read or something to try to see if you can get back to sleep. But if you get into a rhythm where you're like just up for 2 hours and it's working for you, then there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think some people will argue that like there's something about having kind of all those cycles together. I don't think that is, fair for people to like try to kind of shame people into like, why isn't your sleep all like bundled together? And then, because I don't think we really know like what the long-term effects of those are. And a lot of times, like our sleep is to help us function better in the daytime, right? On a day-to-day basis to kind of be our best selves. And so if you kind of work out a strategy that works for you, ideally not without medications, kind of using your sleep biology to kind of help your sleep be more restorative, the better off you are. But like, look, like life's hard, man. You've got to try to figure out what works, and kind of prioritizing sleep will kind of have lots of benefits, kind of in your day-to-day life.
So one strategy, I just for myself, drink earlier. Just drink earlier.
Take your wine earlier.
I take my wine earlier. Don't take it so close to.
It's true. I mean, sleep medicine folks, we're big on the day drinking.
Yeah,
right. I tell you, it was like the greatest discovery. I'm like, oh, it's great.
Yeah. We're not the fun police. It's just like just don't drink it too close to bedtime.
Oh, that's refreshing to hear. All right. Well, thank you so much. This is it's just never a subject. Talk about it forever. It's so important. Isn't it strange how we haven't been sleep has not been recognized for so long? It's like all of a sudden there's so much attention being paid to it. I feel like it's like a main pillar of health.
Yeah. There's been a lot of, I mean, like over the probably like 15 years that I've been kind of doing this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. Kind of the public. I like to think there's like a slow shift in like the collective consciousness around prioritizing rest, including sleep, and that I hope that continues. I mean, I'm sure there'll be kind of push and pull down the line, but I mean, I think we're learning more and more about kind of the costs of insufficient sleep, the benefits of getting enough, and I think over the course of the pandemic, like people kind of really started to kind of rethink how do I protect my health? How do I kind of ensure that I can kind of live my best life? And hopefully I like to think that sleep has become a part of that a little bit. I also think technology has played a big role. I think people are kind of fascinated by tracking their sleep. And so that's really become like something that, an individual user can do and then kind of like, piques their interest and that kind of drives some of the other things that go on in the world around sleep. So
yeah. I've opted to not track it because it just makes me feel bad about myself. But I pretty much know my sleep score for today, which is 2 out of 100.
That's not true. But yeah, no, I like there is like a segment of the population that there's a term called orthosomnia, which is like insomnia that develops because of wearable devices. And yeah, it's an unfortunate thing because they're not the hard truth around sleep, right? It's like it's for consumer use.
Yeah.
That's
totally
so interesting.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know we've taken up quite a bit of it.
No, this is awesome. You guys are so great to talk to.
Super beneficial and helpful. So we want everybody to buy the book. Where do they go to get it?
I think anywhere where books are sold online. Go to your local bookstore if you can.
Yes, go to small bookstores if possible.
Yeah.
Especially if you get up too early, just go for a walk and go wait
outside until it opens. Yeah, totally.
Okay, and it's The Sleep Prescription by Dr. Aric Prather.
Wow, you nailed it.
Nailed it last time. Thank you so much, and best of luck with all of it.
Thank you.
It. I might go with that. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Sleep well.
Bye. All right, bye.
Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. Give us a couple of stars. Give us 5 whole stars. They don't cost you anything. And you can find out more information on our website at htwpodcast.com. And you can follow us on social at Earth and Star, which is at Earth and Star Co. Thanks so much.